What's up, everybody? This is Nate, and welcome to the Nate Echoes podcast. I'm excited you're here. I'm excited you're listening. I want to see what we can learn together today. Interesting questions inspire me, so I think they may just make us better people. So I want to see what happens by asking an interesting question, and I ask it of you. I hear something, I read something, and I find it interesting, and I just want to echo it back to you. See what you think. See if we can start a dialogue. It'll be great. Today's episode is episode 022, and I'm calling it Glass Balls, right? So, one of the things that I always remember, I grew up on a traveling puppet team, right? Puppet. Yeah, that kind of puppet. I didn't do the ventriloquist dummy, Jeff Dunham style. I did the old school puppetry where we would do skits and songs and dances and all that kind of stuff with puppets. It was a great ministry our church did. I absolutely love it, and it was a whole lot of fun. But one of the things that we would do is we'd go to this international, it was called iFest, International Festival of Puppetry and Ventriloquism. Don't come at me in the comments with what? But one of the things that they did all this time is they'd have like these illusionists, because a lot of times, when you're talking about maybe you don't know, but when you're talking about the world of Christian puppetry and ventriloquism, illusions, all of these things kind of get thrown in there, kind of these entertainers, as it were, who are sharing the gospel through their art, through their presentation. And one of the things that we saw there, I remember vividly, was this plate spinner, okay? And what a plate spinner was is you'd sit there and you would spin a plate on a rod. Now, if you've ever been to like the Dixie Stampede or something like that, you've got these plate spinners, right? And the goal is for them to spin the plates, and the plates start spinning, they're doing this kind of thing in order to have the plates continue to spin. And then as they get good, as they get better, and where the kind of wow factor jumps up, because you're like, oh wow, somebody's spinning a plate on a stick. That doesn't mean anything. But where the plate spinning gets really interesting is when they start to do more and more. So they'll have a little setup, and they'll set one here, and they'll spin the plate, and then they'll go get another one, start spinning the plate, and while this one's still spinning, spin this plate. And now they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 plates going. And the fun part is these are glass plates. As you run back, or, as you can see, the audience starts to see this plate balancing on the stick, and it's starting to wobble because it's not spinning. The spinning is what's keeping the plate still. And so he'd run back over, and it really becomes entertaining to try to see all of these glass plates spinning and for him not to drop any of them. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a fascination with breaking glass. I just think it's satisfying, it's soothing. Why go to therapy when you can just break glass plates, right? I've always wanted to go to Greece and just go to a wedding and be like, oompa! I don't even know if that's what they do or if it's just in the movies. But there's something that's really interesting and intriguing about that. So I was reading a book the other day, How to Think Bigger, Aim Higher, and Get More Motivated and Accomplish Big Things. It's by, I know, what a title. How can we shorten the title of this book? That would be a big help. But Martin Meadows talks about a whole lot of stuff on how to, think bigger, how to think bigger thoughts, how to set goals, things like that. And there's a quote in there, and I'm going to read it to you. And I'm not the best reader on camera, so I apologize for this. But there's a quote in this book, and here's what it says. In his novel, Suzanne's Diary for Nicholas, James Patterson provides a powerful metaphor that has stuck with me since I read it for the first time in Keller's book. Here's the quote. Imagine life is a game where you are juggling 5 balls, and the balls are called work, family, health, friends, and integrity. And you're keeping all of these balls in the air, but one day you finally come to understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. The other 4 balls are made of glass, the material that you're made of, right? The other 4 balls are made of glass. The quote continues, if you drop one of these, it will be irrevocably scuffed, nicked, or perhaps even shattered, end quote. And as I sat there and thought about that, it's January 2022, and like many people out there, New Year's resolutions are a thing, whether we want them to be or not. I personally typically go with my birthday is kind of that. Okay, this is the year that I'm going to do something, and it kind of goes from October, right? So I'm a little ahead of the game. By the time January gets here, most of the time, and people are making New Year's resolutions, I'm 3 months in because my birthday's in October, so I've already got November and December to fall off the wagon, right? And so as I'm sitting here in January thinking about this, thinking about all of these balls that we have to juggle in our life, like what are these areas? And I last year decided that I wanted to set goals for areas in my life, right? I wanted to set goals for different areas in my life. And this was before I read this book. And I was like, I want to have an intellectual goal. I want to have a goal that is focused on my family. I want to have a goal that is focused on my spiritual life. I want to have a goal that is focused on my work life. I want to have a goal that's focused on relationships, all of these different things. My personal health. And so I created 5 goals this year that New Year's resolutions, whatever, but something that I want to be able to accomplish this year. And it lines up perfectly with what he's talking about these 5 glass balls, or these 4 glass balls represent. Because I genuinely believe that things happen in the extreme. Things happen in the extreme. You've got to end up being laser focused in order to effectuate change, right? And maybe it's getting up early in the morning. Maybe it's doing your devotions. Maybe it's spending time with your kids. Maybe it's doing better at work. Whatever those things are, in order to effectuate change, I think I'm using that word right. In order to enact change in your life and to change a habit or a behavior, you've got to be laser focused on what it is. And that's why the incremental small changes are way more effective than just the monumental ones. But you've got to be focused, laser focused on those small changes. So as I started thinking through this, I started saying, okay, what are the things that can't change? What are the things in my life that can't change, or I don't want to change? I'm sitting here saying, like, if these things fall apart, and this is where I love the areas of your life that you're juggling these things, because we all have stuff to do. We all have families to visit. We all have errands to run. We all have fantasy football to deal with. We all have work. We all have play. We all have school. We all have downtime. We all have doctor's appointments. There's all of these things that we're juggling. But what are those balls that I'm considering to be a glass ball, to where if I drop it, there's going to be irrevocable damage done to the ball and potentially losing it? So for instance, one thing that I can't screw up is I can't screw up my family. That is a non-negotiable for me. I cannot screw up my family. That is a glass ball, to where if all the other balls drop, that's one ball that if all 5 of them are up in the air and I'm like, shoot, which one do I grab? I have to go get my family. I can't let that fall, because if it drops, there's going to be damage that cannot be undone. Damage that cannot be undone. Some of the balls that they talk about here, that Meadows talks about, let's see, it's work, family, health, friends, and integrity. Man, if we let our health drop, it's gonna be bad, because it's gonna put all of those other things. If we aren't being healthy people and doing the things that we know we need to do, our work is gonna suffer, our family is gonna suffer. We're not gonna be able to get out and do things like we should or could, right? That's one of those glass balls that you have to sit there and go, oh my goodness, I can't let this one drop, right? Your family or your friends, and here's where I'm. Hopefully you've got the metaphor at this point, but here's one of the things that I thought as I was reading this. If you genuinely believe that in order to effectuate change in your life, you have to be laser focused, we can't be laser focused on multiple things, right? And so even throughout seasons, even throughout routines, what are some of those glass balls, those important things? They're not unimportant, right? And I'm not suggesting that work is unimportant. Maybe you love what you do. Maybe you effectuate change in your work and you do life change in your work like I do. I genuinely believe in what I do, and I'm excited and privileged to be able to do this. So what are those things that, so it's not just work as a rubber ball, it'll bounce back, don't worry about it. Or you could just take it off. But what are those things that I'm going to choose? You know what? Instead of for this season, instead of for this week, focusing on all of these, What are two that I don't drop, but I intentionally set up and make time for and say, I'm going to set these aside for just a little bit, going to pick them back up. But I'm going to focus on these one or two things. I'm going to focus on my spiritual life. I'm going to focus on my friendships. I'm going to focus on my family. I'm going to focus on making myself better for my work by going and getting more education, a master's degree, or whatever it might be. There are things that you're setting aside. Understanding that it is for a finite period of time and you have a plan to go back and pick it up. Because here's where I think a lot of times I have failed. I don't go back and pick it up. I say I'm going to. I'm going to get back into working out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever it might be. But I end up not having a plan to go back to it. And therefore, I forget about it. And I wait too long. And now the ball that I've dropped, it's become scuffed. It's become dusted. It's, whatever the thing is, it's gotten hit by a car on the side of the road. I didn't put it in a safe enough place, right? But what are those things that I can sit there and say, in order to effectuate a little change in this area, I need to be hyper-focused about it? How can we sit here and say, these are the areas of life that I have, and here's where I need to be focused? So that's my thought for the day. Glass balls. What are your glass balls? What are the things that you can't switch, that you can't switch off, that you can't let drop? Because if you do, man, unrepairable damage is going to take place, and they're that important to you to where you can't let them drop. I think it's also equally important understanding the things that you can let drop. Maybe in your work, there's a project that you don't have to get in as timely fashion as you normally do, especially during busy seasons. Maybe in your family, there's a time when your spouse and the kids go off to a family outing or something like that you can't attend, and they're gone for a couple days, where you get to just focus on an area of your life rather than just playing Call of Duty for 48 straight hours, right? What are those things in your life that you can grab onto and you can say, this ball is made of glass, I can't let it drop, and this ball, it will bounce back. It's made of rubber, or it's made of some other durable material that I don't know about. So yep, those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear what some of your glass balls are, some of the things that you just won't allow to drop, or how you've even thought about that in the past. I'm always up for learning. So let's make today great. Have a good one. See you next time.